In a Q&A long ago, Wargaming were asked about tanks from South America, and well, they said they had something special planned for the South American countries as well as Spain and Portugal. I believe strongly that there's going to be a combined South American or well Latino tech tree. This proposal that I'll be covering in this video was created in 2016 by a user on the European forums called Chicken Master. Before I get into this video, 70% of you guys watching this video are not subscribed to the channel, so let's get that down to 60%. So if you enjoy this video and want to see more like this, feel free to like and subscribe, it helps out a ton. Anyways, let's get right into it. Tier 1 is the Trubia Naval, a tank that was created in 1936 during the Spanish Civil War and will be the tank that kickstarts the Latino Tech Tree. This Tier 1 vehicle was based upon the Landesa tractor. It was built by a Spanish shipbuilding company called Sestao. This was a small tank which had a crew of 3 men and is a very small but simple turret on it as well. This tank is more comparable to the Czechoslovakian Tier 1 tank and early tank designs from the 1920s like the French FT tanks and the American T1 Cunningham. This tank would be armed with a Vickers gun, so would be gun statistic wise it would be similar to the British Tier 1. For World of Tanks, this will be a nice tank to start the Latino Tech Tree, as that's all it needs to be. Tier 2 is the CCI Tipo 37. The Tipo 37 is the next tank in the line, one that I believe will play like the early Panzer I tanks created by Germany before the start of World War II, and is the Tier 2 in the German tech tree. This tank was created in 1937 by Spanish nationalist forces during the Spanish Civil War. Only one prototype of this vehicle was made, but it would mount a 20mm breeder model 1935, a small autocannon which is the similar gun to the Panzer I, and I'm pretty sure it is mounted on the Panzer I. This tank is mediocre at best, as its armour is abysmally poor, meaning it won't be standing any chance against Tier 2 tanks. But at the end of the day, it's a Tier 2 tank. What do you expect? People are just going to skip through it, unless you are a very new player. Anyways, let's get right into Tier 3. Tier 3 is the Verdeja 1. For the original proposal, the tech tree fits the old tech tree style, so I'm changing it to fit the new condensed tech tree style. This means the Carro de Combat 15T and the Carro de Combat 20T are no longer in the tech tree and are replaced by the Verdeja tanks that are in the light tank line of the tree. The Verdeja 1 is one of the most notable tanks in the Spanish tech tree and well, one of Spain's most notable tank prototypes. This tank is a rear turreted light tank, although for a light tank it's slow and is very poorly armoured. Its top speed is 44 km/h and its engine power is only 120 horsepower, meaning it will have a rough time getting to its speed limit. The tank was built after the Spanish Civil War, however it never passed the stage of having a prototype. Branching from the Verdeja 1, you get two options, the tank destroyers and the medium tanks. We're going down the medium tanks, but in another video if you want I will do the tank destroyers. Coming from the Verdeja 1 we get the Verdeja 2. As the Verdeja program came to a close, the leader of the program, Captain Verdeja, decided to begin the successor of the failed tank. This ultimately ended up creating a slightly faster mid-mounted turret light tank called the Verdeja 2. However, despite this vehicle being all around better than the Verdeja 1, it still failed, mainly due to Germany sending Spain Panzer IV and Stug 3 vehicles. In the game, the Verdeja 2 would be a terrible light tank, playing like the 14 TP in the Polish tech tree. To me, an absolutely terrible vehicle, and one you would probably want to skip in the future if this tank was ever in the game. For a light tank, it's slow and has an okay gun but has very poor armour. But the Verdeja 2 can research into the start of the light tank line and the medium tank line. And when it gets to Tier 5 in the light tank line, that's when it gets to good vehicles. And for the medium tanks, that's also when we start getting good vehicles and true medium tanks. The Tier 5 is the Verdeja 3, a further development of the Verdeja tank dated from 1942 to 1943. It was supposed to be a mix of the Verdeja 2 and a Soviet T-34 tank, but the project was abandoned because Verdeja 2 could not even go into mass production. This tank would actually be competent as a medium tank in game, I believe, with fairly decent armour, around 60mm on the front, 40 on the side and 15 on the rear, which I was able to grab from Pickpicker's Spanish tech Tech Tree proposal, this tank would lose some of its speed, but gain 2 fairly decent guns, and the top gun being a bit of a dirt gun. Either way, this tank will probably play like the TT-34. Since it is supposed to be like it, this means it would have been a reliable tank, with a fairly punchy gun. Other than that, there is nothing much known about this vehicle, apart from the fact there were 2 different plans for it, a medium tank and a light tank. So, the Argentine Sherman is the tier 6 tank, the DL-43Nahuel. The first Argentine tank in the tech tree. This starts the very odd post-World War II Argentine Sherman tanks, which go all the way to tier 8. The tanks from tier 6 to 8 will be more of support long-range snipers, like the French tier 8 M4 Sherman variant that is already in the game. These tanks will offer similar playstyles to that, but it will be somewhat unique to these vehicles. This tank is technically just a clone of the American M4 Sherman, a tank that looks fairly odd but actually can perform a little bit better than the M4 Sherman. The Nahuel DL-43 is essentially an Argentine replica of the M4 Sherman, which would mount German guns. The tank was actually produced with 16 vehicles being created in 1943 to 1944, and later some of these vehicles will be upgraded to be even punchier. However, they would be replaced by the American M4 Sherman tanks, which is start Argentina's craze of modifying M4 Shermans. As this is a tier 6 vehicle, its stock gun will be the gun that it had in real life, a very terrible gun, but its other guns will be a lot more punchier. Tier 7 is the DL-52Nahuel II. This tank I'm pretty sure is a fake tank, however it is included in the proposal, and we all know Wargaming isn't really afraid of adding fake tanks to the game. We know the tier 8 premium Italian medium tank is fake, and we know the Polish medium tanks are also slightly fake. So what is this tank? Well, I'm pretty sure it's a variation of the Nahuel DL-43 with some new armour which made it more sloped. But that's not all. This tank would have a Panther gun, meaning it will be quite good at the role that it will be aiming to be, a long-range sniper. No clue what the turret is. It seems to be somewhat of a modification of the original turret, closely on the lines of the Sherman Firefly, or dare I say it, the Tiger II. Either way, this will be a long-range sniper with terrible armour, but good mobility. This will pretty much be like the next tank in the medium tank line. And yes, that's it, the final Sherman in this tech tree, the Sherman Repotenciado. Tier 8 is essentially the French Tier 8 Sherman premium tank, but of course, this is a standard tech tree vehicle, so it'll be even worse, and it's Argentine. This tank is a project from the late 1970s, as the Argentines tried to modernise their armoured units while the TAM project was underway. This vehicle was built during the Argentine border crisis with Chile. This tank used French engines and the French 105mm guns, which proved to be a good gun, especially on tier 8 vehicles, as they are on the French tier 8 Sherman tank. 252 Shermans were upgraded to be Sherman Repotenciados, and they stayed in service up until 1994, which means they were pretty good tanks. This tank also had some slight armour upgrades, however it still won't make its armour effective at its tier. This tank, like I said, will play more like a long-range sniper or mid-range support vehicle rather than a brawling medium tank, as it has a punchy gun but terrible armour and okay mobility. The next tank is a little bit of a problem. This is essentially just the American M47 medium tank, but it has some major modifications. The tank is different to the American M47 as it has an upgraded gun, modified armour and modern equipment and more. This tank has a German RH-105mm gun and improved FCS, as well as night vision for the commander and driver. This tank is technically not in World of Tanks, so we could get away with having it in the Argentine Tech Tree, as this is not in the American Tech Tree, so yeah, you can technically get away with it being a Spanish tank, because it is a Spanish vehicle. However, this has made a slightly better version of the American Tier 9 M46 pattern that is in the game already. Anyways, moving from Tier 9 to Tier 10, we get the crown jewel of the Latino Tech Tree's medium tank line, and this is an Argentine tank, the TH-301. This makes me want to think what an actual full Argentine Tech Tree would look like, so yeah, if you want me to do one of them, please let me know. Anyways, the TH-301 is a private venture by Tyson Henschel, who built a prototype of a rear-turreted medium tank on a chassis similar to the Leopard 1 and the TAM's chassis. This tank had improvements to its gun elevation and depression, as well as higher penetration on its main gun and more armour on the hull and the turret of the vehicle. The prototype was aimed to be for the Argentine market, but in the end, Argentina bought the TAM as it was more cost effective for them and it was easier to produce on license. The TH-301 was never mass produced, but it does have a prototype. So guys, what do you think about this video? I'd love to know what you guys think about the Latino Tech Tree, and do you want me to cover the light tank line and the tank destroyer line, because I will cover them in the future for you guys regardless. Anyways, should I do a video about an Argentine Tech Tree? I feel like that would be a cool thing to explore. Anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed. If you're new, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Have a great day. Lost my mind.